Connor.
And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we're Friends Stream Sports. We're real friends. We talk about real sports in real time, and we're bringing some real big teams to the hardwood tonight, Connor.
Rutledge, you are finally taking my advice and playing with an all-time team. So, I am a trendsetter here, but I'm glad you're catching on.
I I have to catch on to what the locals do. I'd also like to give a shout out. I had a really good dinner tonight. I went to a place called Ellie Lou's Barbecue and Brew in Claremont, Florida this evening, off of Highway 50. You guys should go check it out. It was really good.
Ellie Lou's Barbecue and Brew. What kind of barbecue are we doing?
They have some chicken, they do some turkey, they got some pulled pork. I had a Kansas City wet with some onion straws. That was
Oh,
so good.
oh, nice.
So big shout out to them. A good friend of the show named Chris Pirelli is with them, so want to give a shout out to them and their outstanding delicious barbecue.
Wonderful. And let's give a shout out to these outstanding, delicious uniforms.
Throwback uniforms.
Throwback all day.
Damian Lillard just immediately I just want to take Dame to the paint and just have that layup to just show that we're not messing around tonight, Connor.
Oh, we never mess around,
We
and that's
never
why.
mess around.
So speaking of not messing around, Rutledge, Orlando City got their first win.
They did. I was there on Saturday. I was in supporters section when Akindelli knocked in that very early goal and then cradled it like a baby. So that was a beautiful thing. But Connor, what did you see when you watched some OCSC this weekend?
I think that Orlando City, very happy for them to get their first win. I think in some regards, I mean, it might have been more about them playing Cincinnati, and Cincinnati's not exactly world beaters, but I think even though Tesho got his first goal this season, definitely not a long-term solution at that number 9 position. Um, if I sure hope that Daryl DK comes back to Orlando, or at the very least, Orlando gets some good value, just because there's some good opportunities for the non number 9 position, but Orlando's actually good enough right now where they need to be worried about the number 9 position, right? That striker position. So Pato's hurt. No Daryl DK. Foul on the Mavs. I think that Nani, I would expect Nani's minutes to get managed throughout the course of the season. He's started out playing really well, but this is a long, long season, and we're going to want Nani feeling good for the playoffs. Finally, I think kind of my third big take is I'm liking the Mueller-Michelle kind of combo out there on the wing, right? So one guy will start, the other guy will maybe come in off the bench as a substitute. They both bring a lot of really good energy to the game. So it'll be very interesting to see how Orlando is looking after these next 5 games between NYCFC, DC United, Toronto, and New York Red Bulls. All the next 5 games are against Eastern Conference opponents, so could definitely really, really, be able to get some good, not just get some good points, but be able to work against the some other Eastern Conference opponents. So I know that's a long take to describe your question, Rutledge. How's it been? You've been to 2 games so far this season.
The energy in the stadium, yeah, the energy in the stadium and the excitement is still there. As an Orlando City fan, the one thing you talk about, and it was even brought up on the first game, and the first game was hot, is the heat. Um, Connor and I love our Lions, but man, those July ones are rough. And you just have to get, when you talk about Nani's minutes, there's going to be times, and I remember especially during the MLS play-in tournament here in Walt Disney World at the ESPNY World of Sports, it gets big into a lot of mandated MLS hydration breaks. We didn't really have that on Saturday because it was late. I'm hoping that the MLS, I know there's a lot more late games on the schedule, but I hope that the MLS lets the weather play into Orlando's favor because there is something to be said about the team gets just sort of gassed from being in those elements all the time. And you can see it when other teams come into town. They've practiced in the heat. Orlando's lived in the heat. let's say a Toronto comes in, had fresh weather, is able to hydrate, prepare, get settled, and they just get outplayed because they're exhausted. So um, great energy, but I'm worried about the elements as always for us.
No doubt, no doubt. But so we'll see. Oscar Pereja, old Poppy, he seems to know what he's all about. The other thing, Rutledge, that I think Orlando needs to definitely be in consideration of, right, is just cleaning up that play out of the back, um, playing from the back to the front. Pedro Gallese, good goalie. From everything I've seen so far this year, probably the number one biggest mistake that Orlando can struggle with is just that simple little goal kick to the center back. There's some pressure. There's been some miscommunications and breakdowns so far that led to the Kansas City goal that they had. So definitely interested to see that progress over the course of the season, and be very ready to roll there.
Yeah.
Um, so one thing that was pretty hot this weekend was a particular protest that happened at Old Trafford.
Oh,
Why don't you
yes.
tell us a little bit more about that?
So, for all those that don't know, even though the Super League is dissolved, the Manchester United fan base is still not very happy about it. And actually, the Manchester United game this weekend got postponed because I guess the only way to describe it is the fan bases of Manchester United stormed the building and took over to where a game could not be played. There's still very much hate against the ownership, even though, as we've talked about, Manchester United is probably one of the more recognizable soccer brands internationally. You could pick their jersey out of a store and go, that's an English soccer team. As an American sports fan who's never watched soccer, um, Man U, their fans have had enough. They don't like that the team has gone the money direction that it does. English teams really are about the pride in their city, and even though this brand is huge, uh, I I think power to the people. It really shows in today's world that even though everything's bigger, louder, faster, that we are not getting anything to go in. Even though it's bigger, louder, faster, it is still about sports are still about the athletes and the fans. We think it's about money, we think it's about TV, we think it's about everything else, but it is still all about the people. So, Connor, what did you think watching that go down?
You know, it, what's interesting, right, is both teams still have a lot to play for, and you would think from the fans' perspective, yeah, as a fan, it's kind of like, man, you can be mad at ownership, but do what you can to make sure that the game gets played on time. You don't want other things to be going down, making an issue there. Just like Dallas, kind of running roughshod right now over the Portland Trailblazers.
Roughshot is light terms about what is happening right now.
So, but we're still all right here. No, I think it's interesting, right? Because as you said, the Super League isn't happening. Fans in a lot of ways got what they wanted. I guess one of the things I was thinking about, Rutledge, and would love to hear your take is, and I've got a few thoughts. It's like, what is this like for us in America, right? We don't see games postponed because of things that teams do. So many things we want to get into the stands because of the life around us. So we want to have our little sports escape. And the fans were so mad they didn't even do that. So I was thinking about, some of the things that Philadelphia fans are famous for, throwing snowballs at Santa Claus because the team is so bad. When you go to games with a bag on your head, that's a pretty American sports move to kind of show discontent. In your opinion, Rutledge, what's some of the biggest things that American sports fans do to show discontent? What would be the closest thing that we would ever see to something like this?
I think the biggest event historically that I could say, and I can't remember the name of the player, but it was when flag burning was a really big protest in America, and two fans raided a baseball stadium, and they attempt to light the flag on fire, and the player ran up and grabbed the flag and took it away from them. I think that is, if you think of American sports protests, that's probably one of the bigger moments that ever happened in American sports history. You go, wow, I can't believe that happened. Um, I think with what you're hitting at, Connor, is American sports. there's a lot of escapism into American sports. For a lot of people, I have a friend of mine, he's a Gator fan, season ticket holder. Going to Gator games is kind of what gets him through the months of August to August all the way until December when he goes to the championship game or a bowl game or something. I don't see American fans wanting to go the same route as blocking a game from happening, but that's also where we have different values of what a sport is. So I think the biggest American equivalent um, that you would see would not come from fans as much as it would come from players. I think a player protest or player lockouts of negotiations or money, um, that's sort of where my head's at in that world. But
And then the other thing too you got to think about is fans will, American fans will just act with their wallet. They just will straight up not go to games. You'll see that. And I think in some ways we idealize European soccer that the games are always sold out no matter what. But I do think American sports will have a little bit more of, for example, the Orlando Magic. They've been bad for the last couple years, like really bad, without too many good players. And what you're seeing now is, Orlando in terms of attendance at games is very low. So I think you're going to see a lot of that, but definitely a wild one for sure as it relates to this Man United and Liverpool. And as always, soccer continues to give us a lot of storylines.
it does. I think Peter had a really good way of showing it on one of our previous shows. He really talked up the differences that happen between, of just sort of how at least the English crowd loves the game different than the American crowd loves the game. So I think they would protest it differently. But I think you're right, Connor. That is why I think relegation will never work in America. Case in point, like in Orlando Magic, if we get relegation in a sport of ours, American fans just won't show up to support that team. But
And that would not be good. Not be good for the pocketbooks of the old owners.
it would not. Speaking of relegation, there's kind of a relegation coming. Speaking of is our transition for the night, everybody. But speaking of relegation, there's kind of like a little bit of almost a relegation style coming to the NBA play-in tournament, which starts May 18th. Connor, we're 2 weeks away from something that LeBron James came out and said whoever came up with that idea needs to get fired.
And did you see that there were some top executives that were saying whoever came up with that idea needs to get promoted?
I did
Because
not see
there's
the
a lot of
executive side.
yeah, so very, very interesting stuff here. But yeah, there's a lot of storylines. You've got the Wizards pulling it together, and Wizards are a playoff team. They were really, really bad earlier in the year, and as it stands right now, they can say they've made the 2021 NBA playoffs.
Yes, we kind of wrote the Wizards off this show saying Bradley Beal, Russell Westbrook, doing super good job, but doesn't really matter. And now there they are. They're in 10th place. They're making a run. Russell Westbrook had a nasty triple-double last night, 14 points, 21 rebounds, 24 assists. An amazing play, which he did this home run pass, like touchdown pass all the way down across the court to Bradley Beal, laying it in. Just absolutely incredible play. They look like a different team.
Yeah, they for sure are playing really well right now, and I still think the East is all about kind of the top three and then everybody else, but you've got some opportunity for the Wizards to really be able to make it some noise, make it seem a little more doable, and just create a little bit more interest, especially in the East.
In the East, of course, the top three teams are the 76ers, the Nets, and the Bucks. But in fourth place is the New York Knicks, which I can't believe we're saying here on French Stream Sports. Connor, I know you've been secretly watching the New York Knicks. How are they doing this? Because this is not the New York Knicks we all thought of a long, long time ago.
As to go behind the scenes a little bit of our show notes, this brief segment is entitled, "Are the Knicks actually good?" And I think that might be the number one sports-related question that I ask people, and no one seems to be able to give me a straight answer on this. I think, number one, obviously, Derrick Rose has been playing really, really well. Uh, they've been able to string together some wins. Julius Randle's on a heater. They've been able to play a lot of good ball. Now, I think here's the question: is you got to remember who their coach is and a little bit of the track record of their coach, right? Tom Thibodeau has been a good coach over time and has been able to be a really good regular season coach. But the question will be, is this just another Tom Thibodeau coach team where they're going to take the regular season very, very seriously and then kind of trail off at the end? I think these last 7 games that the Knicks have are going to be very critical. They play Denver, Phoenix, Clippers, Lakers, Spurs, Hornets, and Celtics. I did that all while looking at my little screen, not my big screen here, while playing NBA 2K. But
Oh, that
I think that the Knicks could very well go 2-5 down that stretch, and we still don't know if they're actually any good because those are a lot of really good teams they have coming up.
they have a lot of good coming up, and I think it will. We'll be watching the playoffs and watching the play-in tournament, going, are the Knicks even any good? And at the 4 seed, they could skip the play-in tournament. They
They could skip the play-in tournament and play a team like Boston, who has some issues,
mhm.
right? And they could win a playoff series
Yeah.
between either Boston or Atlanta, depending on who ends up being kind of that 4-5 matchup. That's probably I think the most interesting uh, first round series.
Right now, as it goes, yes, they would play Atlanta in the first round, and especially depending on how Trey Smith is doing and how he comes out for the playoffs after being injured, which in my opinion was just too late. Uh, Boston, they could win that series. All right, I get the ball back. Speaking of someone getting the ball back, speaking of transitions, the Lakers last night, they actually came back and beat the Nuggets, and I got a chance to stay up a little later than you, Connor, and watch this game. AD put in about 26 minutes, and then he had to sit with the team physician to get that right calf sort of massaged. They're bringing him back in the fold, but it was good to watch. They were down in the Nuggets until the third quarter, then they started to drive back, but a lot of what it showed with the Lakers is what made them so good in the bubble. What made the Lakers good in the bubble? Their bench depth. I will say, losing Rajon Rondo and losing Dwight Howard is showing its impact to them. Of course, they have a lot of people hurt, but you're not as good as your starters as you're as good as your entire bench. So uh, we have to see what they can do to sort of bounce back and how the Lakers can make themselves in contention. They are currently in the West. They are a 5 seed. So if they don't get themselves together and start winning some games, they could end up in that play-in tournament, playing a lot more games than they wanted to. So that's going on with the Lakers.
Yeah, and I think the big thing for the Lakers will just be making sure LeBron and AD are coming back healthy, right? It's not, especially in the playoffs, right? It's not necessarily your 12th best player that makes the difference, but you gotta have 8 strong players, right? And there are some times where all you're playing for that one night is 8 guys throughout the course of a game, and you're just rotating 8. But that means you got to be tight 1 through 8. So definitely agree. I think that it's probably just more about making sure they're healthy and you got some rhythm. LeBron's feeling good, ready to roll, and we're rocking and rolling. So no, I think it'll be the West is going to be a ton of fun to watch this year in the playoffs. I still kind of think the Clippers have a lot to say about who ends up winning the West, but that's just me. So speaking of wings, like the Clippers have, Dallas and their big wing guy Luca has been lighting it up lately. Light it up, Luca Rutledge. Have you been kind of following the Mavericks?
I have more been following the decline of Portland than I have been following the rise of the Mavericks. I will say Luca has been playing out of his mind basketball. Just like that pass was out of my mind, frustrating. Um, Luca definitely is emerging himself as he's going to be a talent that we talk about for a long time here on French Stream Sports. So loving to see that, loving to see how great he's doing. I'm surprised he's not on this lineup that you have.
He's a bench player.
He is a bench player.
Dallas has some good players, man.
Dallas has got some depth where uh, Portland is not. I don't know. I can't even describe what's happening tonight. But
That's all right. The last time we played, you had the mighty second half comeback. So
I did.
definitely.
Everyone loves a good comeback story. But I will say this as we wrap up. It has been the moment I want to share in the NBA was Carmelo Anthony moved up the scoring list, all-time scoring list, and gave like a thank you speech in the locker room. And I've never been in a basketball locker room, but you could tell even though it's a great accomplishment for him, no one really cared. So I think that Portland is in trouble. They're going to be in the play-in tournament, and I think that Dallas is going to secure themselves, even though they just have a half game over Portland. I think Dallas is heating up at the right time.
Just like that shot almost heated up at the right time. So a lot of fun NBA to follow as this season winds down. As always, the NBA will give us some really big time storylines that will be fun to watch as summer heats up here, Rutledge. I don't know if you were outside today, but today was a scorcher.
It definitely was. It's cooled down for the 76ers, the Nets, the Jazz, the Suns, the Nuggets, and the Clippers, who are all locked into the playoffs. But I cannot wait to talk about this play-in tournament. The players, LeBron doesn't like it, but we do here at Friendstream Sports.
That we do. Always a lot of fun. And we also love here on Friends Stream Sports is our halftime hot takes. Brr, 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 brought to you by Scalding Hot Coffee. Rutledge, do you want to tee us up?
So this halftime hot take, we're focusing on the play-in tournament. We're going to take a team who we see right now, if they started, who is destined to be in the play-in tournament and who we think is going to make a deep run. So for me, I am going into the Eastern Conference, and I am going to reach to a team that has started to find their form. You can never go wrong with coaching, and that's why I'm going to talk about Brad Stevens and the Boston Celtics. Boston sitting at a 7 seed. They're a game back from the Heat for a 6 seed, but they're really starting to show momentum and gelling, and I think the play-in tournament, since it's one game, is going to be how good are you in winning one game. So I'm taking Boston.
I'm going to go with the Warriors. I think that the Warriors have the veterans to help them get through a one-game tournament, if you will. And then, the Warriors have lost a fair amount of games by 30-plus points, but to beat the Warriors by 30 points four games out of 7 is really, really hard. So they're just really streaky. So I think that they're going to be a really hard out for anybody, and I could see them pulling some upsets and making a little noise. So I'm going with the Golden State Warriors.
There is definitely a lot of chat from all the talking heads around the world talking about how people in I think it was Draymond Green said people in the NBA are afraid of Steph Curry right now. So I think the Warriors is a good pick.
And that's our halftime hot takes. I think it got heated up today even a little bit more because of halftime hot takes.
Because of how scalding hot your coffee brand name is here.
Panera.
That's shooting for the moon. We are aiming for the stars here on Friendstream Sports.
Aiming for those stars, just like the Dallas Mavericks tonight are playing like some stars. That's for sure. They're playing like their hockey team counterparts.
I'm proud of you for a hockey reference.
Hey, I know hockey.
Everyone knows a little hockey.
I used to watch the Colorado Avalanche a ton growing up as a kid.
I hate the Colorado Avalanche.
With Patrick Waugh and Peter Forsberg, but the straw that really stirred the drink of the Avalanche was Joe Sakic. That guy, whenever he was on the ice, he was making an impact.
I hate all of those guys. They used to beat up on my Canucks so bad back in the early 2000s. And
so
what a bunch of punks. That was wide open spaces.
What a bunch of Stanley Cup winning punks.
Yeah.
And sure. Speaking of
Speaking of transitions.
Speaking of transitions here on Friendstream Sports, which we're really good at. Rutledge, let's talk about some NFL. We had the big draft this weekend.
Yes, 2021 was served on draft for the Stars came out this past week. Some big names. So we're going to take our very own, no one has a segment like this in the sports talk world. I'm pretty proud of this segment, Connor. We call this Must, Bust, and Trust. So tell the people, what are we going to talk about in Must Bust and Trust tonight?
Yeah, so the idea is, as always, you got something that's a must, something that you think kind of gets the A, if you will. You had the bust, the just yeah. Who do you think is the bust in terms of overall drafts of a team, and then that's bust. But I love trust because you can take trust a lot of different ways. Is it just who is solid, who's going to play right up to expectations? You got a little bit of play in the trust, which I always find is a lot of fun. So Rutledge, what we're asking tonight is between must, bust, and trust. Who, what kind of grades are we giving some of these NFL teams here? Uh, from this past weekend.
Yeah, there's some big ones. So I'm gonna go, and these are me that are they're just three teams that had good high profile drafts. I'm gonna go with my must is in someone that you gotta watch what this draft class is gonna do in the NFL next year, and I'm gonna go with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know that this might seem like the sexy pick, but Urban Meyer's all about building culture and getting people in on his message and really driving this is what we're trying to accomplish. I think in order to do that, you have to, especially for him and how he's been such a good college coach, you have to have some youth. Picking up Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne to get familiar with each other in the backfield um, is going to make Trevor Lawrence a little bit more comfortable. He also put in a lot of different to the huddle in practice in the film room. The room's going to listen to him. I still think they could go 8-8, but I think this is him laying the groundwork to be more successful. So that's my must is the class for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
So my must, I think the Jags is a good pick. Um, my must, I'm going to go with the Dolphins here, and really it's just uh, there's two players that I think really exemplify why I think it's the Dolphins had a must draft. Number one, super high on Jalen Waddle. I was all about him uh, during our power ranking segment last week, and I think not just that, but you got the tight end Hunter Long out of BC. There's a lot of really smart sports people that are saying has a big chance to be a sleeper. You know, one of the things that you do if your quarterback isn't as good as you want him to be, which it's looking like, early returns on Tua not as good as people are hoping, is to continue to give him weapons. So I'm looking at Jalen Waddle and Hunter Long to create this Dolphins draft class as the must. So Rutledge, those are our musts. Who are our busts?
I am going to go and actually, I am playing against a wall tonight of players. Dallas is nothing but height, and it is absolutely nasty. Look at it, just getting rocked tonight. I'm going to go with my bust is the Seattle Seahawks. And what I mean by the Seattle Seahawks is, and this may feel a little homer for everyone out there that knows I'm a diehard 12. Um, they only had three picks, and it feels very obvious to say, well, they kind of busted in the drafts because they only had three picks. But luckily, they sort of attacked the needs that they had. They got a wide receiver, they got a tackle, they got a cornerback because they lost one of their stud cornerbacks, and Shaquille Griffin is a Jaguar now. But I think this was the year they really needed to make some moves. And while I know they only had three picks, you can't continue to build. You got to really hope what you have is going to carry you. And I don't think they grabbed big enough players in their three picks to make a difference. They're just sustaining their roster. So that's my
You,
bust.
I've got a source that when I asked him about the Seahawks draft, he goes, especially with the wide receiver position, he goes, Seahawks drafted another 24-year-old standout from the Senior Bowl. Let's see how we do it. Let's see how that goes. So,
Right.
yeah, definitely a interesting. It's kind of tough if you just have three players to choose from, but or to pick. But we'll see. We'll see how this all works out here for sure. My bust after I make this great substitution that I'm about ready to make here. My bust is the Green Bay Packers. Um, Shout out to friend of the show Emily Woodward, who has been great posting everything on Facebook of how upset she is with the Green Bay Packers. But Going into the draft, Aaron Rodgers made his surprise announcement, and you spend your first 4 picks not on wide receivers. Uh, what do you do if you want Aaron Rodgers to stay? I don't know, man. Like, if I think that if you hear that from Aaron Rodgers that he's leaving, I think you take any plans that you had in the draft, you throw them out the window, and you say, let's do whatever we need to do to keep Aaron Rodgers happy. I'm sure he could be tough to work with. I'm sure that there's things that you could say, oh, he doesn't quite understand this, that, and the other. Here's the deal. Aaron Rodgers kind of is the sort of golden goose for the Green Bay Packers. Rutledge, what's the number one rule with golden gooses?
You never touch their eggs.
Never touch their eggs. Never kill the golden goose for chicken meat. Never kill the golden goose. And
I've
I think
killed
the
a lot of
Packers
golden
have been.
gooses. I didn't know that rule until
I think the
right now.
Packers have been very, very lucky to have. I don't think they realize how lucky they've been to have go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, ask the Colts what it was like to go from Peyton Manning to revolving door to Andrew Luck to Jacoby Brissett. That was tough. So I think that the Green Bay Packers, even after this draft, Aaron Rodgers saying, no, I'm done with you guys. Maybe he would have said that if they only picked wide receivers, but spending your first 4 picks not on wide receivers isn't exactly sending a message to Aaron Rodgers that you're ready to play ball.
I definitely can see that as a bust, and we will definitely see how that goes down. So that's our must, that's our bust. And now who do we trust? Connor, I'm gonna get your I want to go first. I'm gonna get your attention, as I don't seem to have your attention on the basketball court with my trust this evening. I'm gonna say a team name that people are gonna come at me for. The Cleveland Browns.
Whoa.
I'm well aware of what I've said as the Cleveland Browns, but this Browns organization feels different. Myles Garrett needs help with that defense. I think Baker Mayfield and the offensive pieces that they have are great. I think they needed to add sort of some ability to really make some impacts on the defensive side of the ball. That division has got some great quarterbacks, and that division has got some great teams to where it's all about what does your defense do. They really sort of took after that, and it's gonna be the AFC North is gonna be a bloodbath this year on the gridiron. Just like this game is an absolute bloodbath for me. But I am taking the Browns. I trust them to take that lineup and really make some moves.
No doubt. Hey, I think AFC North. You gotta bring an extra sandwich when you play AFC North teams, right? Because they are going to stress you all day long, no doubt about it. My trust is the Arizona Cardinals. I think that the Cardinals are going to be. They had a couple really, really solid picks. I love their second-round pick, Rondale Moore, out of Purdue. I hope my wife heard that. Giving Purdue a shout-out here on the show. I think he's got the chance to be a stud because he can do a lot of things. But then also they're very high on their first-round pick, Javon Collins. So I think that the Cardinals added some really good pieces at the top end of the draft for sure.
We will definitely see how it goes. You love you some Arizona Cardinals.
I didn't think I would love the Cardinals as much as I do, but yeah, I'm into them. I'm into the Cardinals. I think that they're going to be the NFC West got a lot better after this draft, just as a whole.
I am no longer into the Portland Trailblazers. I'll tell you that much. Go in.
They're playing on this video game like they've been playing this season.
Just like that. It's their defense.
Roses are beautiful and soft. You don't think about defense when you think of a rose.
Are you insinuating that Derrick Rose is on the Portland Trailblazers? I don't know where you're going with this analogy.
I'm insinuating that the nickname for Portland is the Rose City.
Oh, once again, you are smarter.
Deep fake Connor here. So, I don't know of any city called the Ghost City, maybe Savannah, but I think that there's some quarterbacks who might feel like a rose after the draft, and there's some quarterbacks who might feel a little bit ghosted or a little bit slighted after the draft this past weekend. Rutledge, what do you think?
Oh, there are definitely some quarterbacks that are texting their position coaches or their head coaches or even their GMs are like, "Hey, did you watch a draft? Hey, can we talk on Monday?" And then it's just all messages from them, no messages on the other side. So we're going to go and not only are there some teams that we must bust and trust, there's some quarterbacks that we think should feel real good about what's coming to their town and that should feel uh, real left out in the dark. Like, why don't you love me anymore? So, Connor, who do you think should feel good based on what happened to their team during the draft? Who do you have?
You know, feeling good, Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles. Not only did by the end of the season Jalen Hurts get to be the starting quarterback, and the Eagles move off of Carson Wentz. Not only did the Eagles draft Devontae Smith in the first round, who, even though I rated him fifth on the power rankings, I still think he can be a pretty productive player. But then their next pick was the former center that played for Jalen Hurts. Probably won't play center, but is definitely somebody that is going to have some real familiarity with Jalen Hurts. Also on top of that, and I know I'm going for a little bit of a stretch here, but also on top of that, you have the Eagles have a chance to have 3 first-round picks next year. They have. I'm gonna look at my show notes while I'm playing here. They have the Dolphins first rounder, and then there's kind of a weird thing on the Wentz trade that if Carson Wentz plays more than 75% of the snaps next season for the Colts, they'll have the Colts first rounder. So not only is there a ton of familiarity, but even if the Eagles don't exactly have a great season, there's a lot of potential for more offensive firepower to be selected next year. So I think Jalen Hurts is going to get some extra cheese whiz on his cheesesteak.
Oh, he should feel so good about flying those Eagles and flying them. I am going to go and stick with someone a little different who we love here at Friendstream Sports, and that's our unofficial BFF, Justin Herbert. We're still waiting for you to text us back, by the way. We feel a little ghosted with our friendship. But if you look at what the Chargers did, they came out and they took Rashawn Slater to put on the line with their first pick. That just says that we like you, Justin, and we trust you. They had a cornerback, a wide receiver, and a tight end. Hunter Henry, of course, is a Patriot now when the Patriots bought over everybody, but they've brought some youth to help a quarterback that they believe in. Why did Connor and I fall in love with Justin Herbert so much last year? Because he does so many great things in a pretty wide open division, even though Kansas City lives in their neighborhood. Um, they are building a different type of culture in a team, and if it wasn't for all the injuries, they would have done way better. So I think they're going to be very happy with who they got, and he should feel real good reporting to OTAs when it comes time.
Oh yeah, I think Justin Herbert is going to be. I think he was very very happy. Get some more protection. Um, and they got to score points, man. You got to score points to win the AFC West.
You do.
That's for sure. So being able to do that is a real big positive throughout that. And maybe this will give Justin Herbert the confidence to grow his hair back,
Yep.
or grow his hair out long enough to send us a lock of his hair. I'd be
Yeah.
into that. I would take that 100%.
I would take
Um,
that.
yeah. Sorry, Justin, we're not that weird. Um, but
Connor,
yeah, so I would say to maybe transition into the player who should maybe not feel as good, we need to give a shout out, Friendstream Sports shout out to Cam Newton Rutledge.
oh, we
Uh, yeah, you share why. I think I love the way that you put this.
So if you weren't aware, Twitter, of course, is one of the most savage things ever made in America, outside of even more savage to you than a Big Mac. And if you don't remember a long time ago, there was the Play 60 commercial of the little kid, Cam Newton, telling him, "Don't forget to play 60 minutes a day." And the kid says, "And then I'll be a starting quarterback of the Panthers and win the Heisman and make the NFL forget about you." And that little kid, while it's not Mac Jones, Cam Newton's got to feel like that's Mac Jones because he's come back. He had the inspirational workout videos. He tried to learn that new system. and the Patriots drafted Mac Jones. So I'm sure he's been trying to reach out to Josh McDaniels, but we have to call him out of the elephant in the room because Mac Jones is just kind of exactly what that New England Patriot system needs. He reminds me of a Jimmy G. He reminds me of a Tom Brady. He's very coachable. I know that Bama and New England are not the same, but when you can come out of one of those just highly successful, high disciplined programs, that's your guy. So, uh, how
And
many
you know
texts?
Mac Jones can take criticism. That's a big thing.
That's a huge
If you're
thing.
playing for Bill Belichick, you got to be ready to take. We'll put it lightly. Take a little bit of criticism.
So definitely wanted to call him out of the room that neither one of us should pick him as our. They're feeling ghosted today. So who do you have as ghosted out there after the draft, Connor?
I think that Kirk Cousins from Minnesota should feel ghosted. The Vikings as an organization have seemed like a team that's so close in recent years to being the institutional pick of the NFC North, right? So many times it's like, man, the Vikings have such a great roster everywhere. But then, they got to play Green Bay, or there's kind of these reasons why the Vikings just aren't, end up not being who they need to be. And then, as opposed to picking any offensive skill to continue to give Kirk Cousins help. As you tell, my theme tonight is all about offensive skill. They do draft a tackle with the first pick, but then they pick goal Kellen Mond, who was also crazy productive out of college, but maybe wasn't the highest rated quarterback, to give Kirk Cousins some competition, right? So I think that Kirk should definitely feel ghosted. Everybody in the organization, everybody on that team, everybody on that division seemed to take a step back. When I say everybody on that team, I mean everybody in the division seemed to take a step back. And the Vikings could have taken a step forward and really tried to load up, but they drafted Kellen Mond in the second round and waited until pick 119 to pick a wide receiver. So I think Kirk should not feel very happy right now.
I think he's probably walking up and down the training facility in Minnesota yelling, "Do you like that? Do you like that?" To paraphrase him, yelling at the
But
reporters
like
after the.
questioning, like,
Yeah. Do you
do you
like
like
that?
that?
Do you like that? He's definitely sent some text messages, and he's feeling kind of lonely tonight in the cold, cold land of Minnesota. I'm gonna
Oh
wrap up.
yeah. So Rutledge, as we close out, who do you think is the one that got ghosted?
I'm gonna go with a pair of roommates that are probably sitting at a Portillo's right now. I'm gonna say Andy Dalton and Nick Foles, but most likely Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton just got traded to Dallas, and while he wasn't amazing there, had the second highest amount of completion percentage in his career, did very well, but he got Mike Glennon. You're coming to a new team, and they draft what is supposed to be their quarterback of the future. So for Andy Dalton to watch that, he hasn't come to practice, hasn't let the coaching team see him, and now uh, they're going to have it happen. Even if Fields just sits, all eyes in Chicago are going to be on Justin Fields, and they're going to wait to see him. So I know that Andy Dalton was hoping this was going to be his shot, at least for him and Nick Foles to go, but it is not. So I'm taking Andy Dalton. Feels super lonely out there, eating his feelings in Chicago.
I could see that. Dalton, not a happy camper for sure. And neither are the Portland Trailblazers tonight.
No, that was we're wow. That was wow.
That might have been the largest beatdown in the history of Friends Stream Sports.
It feels like we didn't even play the video game with how much the beatdown was. I don't even want to announce the score on the show because I'm so upset.
Connor wins by 30.
Was it really 30?
Connor wins by 30.
Oh, Damian Lillard had
76 to 36.
Damian 46, 76 to 46, not 36. Could try and rub the salt. Damian Lillard, I think, had 2 points all game.
Wow.
Well,
Well, I would have picked me tonight anyways. So Rutledge, let's move to picks.
let's definitely move to picks. We're gonna pick some real basketball games tomorrow night on Cinco de Mayo. The Wizards are playing the Bucks. The really hot Wizards are playing the kind of sleeper Milwaukee Bucks this year, as there's been so much stories at the top of the East. Connor, who you got?
I think the Wizards keep rolling, going with them.
I am going to take the Bucks. I think this will be a good statement for Bucks and company. Next we have on the 6th, so on Thursday night, Brooklyn plays Dallas.
Yep, and I'm going Brooklyn. I think that I know Brooklyn, I believe, just lost yesterday, but no, I think they're going to turn it around, and I think Brooklyn's just really really good. So it's always good to pick good teams.
Always good to pick good teams. So as that goes, we continue along. Our third NBA game we have is also on the 6th. Is going to be big one is Lakers versus Clippers. Connor, how are you feeling Lakers Clippers?
I'm going Clippers. I think the Lakers are in some trouble.
I am going to go Clippers, but I'm going to take it close. I think the Lakers are starting to find their footing, and I think the locker room is very much chatting that they have to get it together.
And finally, if I can I chime in with a pick,
I
Rutledge?
would love it if you would chime in with a pick.
Tomorrow we've got second leg of UCL semifinals. Man City won today to go into the UCL final, so Pep Guardiola could potentially get that. But tomorrow we have second leg. Currently it sits 1-1 on aggregate. Chelsea does have the away goal, so Chelsea will be home tomorrow. Rutledge, who advances into the Champions League final, Chelsea or Real Madrid?
I'm going Chelsea. I want to see Poloski, if I didn't say his name wrong, because I say names wrong all the time, but I want to see him pull it together. Really like him. I'm going Chelsea.
Well, I don't know who Pelosi is,
Oh.
but it'd be super great to see Pulisic, uh, Captain America, get into Champions League final and be the first American number 10 to ever win it. Unfortunately, I kind of think Real Madrid is going to be more focused on this. I'm going to pick Real Madrid to uh, win a close one, like a 2-2 kind of game, and just get by on away goals kind of game. But I'm picking Real Madrid.
Well, I hope Pulisic can forgive me, or if he wants, he can also beat me 76 to 46 in 2K sometime to make it feel better. They said his name wrong. As that goes, we have one more pick. We always like to pick NASCAR. This coming Sunday is a huge one. This is one of my favorite racetracks outside of Daytona. They're going to Darlington. It is going to be the Goodyear 400. Connor, who do you have sitting on the pole for the Goodyear 400?
Who do I have sitting on the pole for that 400? I'm going to go with Kyle Busch.
There you go. He won last week in Kansas, so let's see if he's finally got into his groove. He's had a quiet season. I'm going to go with Martin Truex Jr. I have a good feeling for him for that one. And hey, your pick for last week for NASCAR worked out. Kyle Busch won the Bushy McBush race. So dreams do
Keep it
come
going,
true.
baby.
Dreams do come true. All right, well, as that
Well,
goes, I need to go ice my wounds from this beating. Connor, do you have anything to say as we close the show for tonight?
if you're asked to pick good teams or bad teams, and not in a cover. Remember, good teams win, great teams cover. So if you're not asked to pick the line, but just pick between a good team and a not as good team, I'd always pick the good team.
Beautiful. Should be a t-shirt.
Pick the good team.
Pick the good team. Well, as that goes, we'll pick the great teams. Thank you for coming out and listening to us. Remember, we're live every Tuesday, 8 p.m. here on Twitch. Please follow us on YouTube. Please listen to our podcast. We're Friends Stream Sports. I'm Rutledge,
And I'm Connor.
and have a great night.
See ya.